Okay, seems about everybody in the waiting room has joined now. It is 5:02 and we will go ahead and get the meeting started. Welcome to the February evening community meeting. Simultaneous is being provided and everyone will need to make a choice to listen to the presentation in either English or Spanish. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are, then click Interpretation. This will be the globe icon located at the bottom of the screen. You may select English or Spanish, and American Sign Language is also an option. If you're accessing Zoom through a mobile app or a phone or a tablet, click the ellipsis that says More, then Interpretation, and then you can choose your language. To only hear the interpreted language, please click the Mute Original Audio option. American Sign Language is available today, and we are also offering captions for this meeting. To enable or disable captions, click the More button and choose the captions choice. We will now have the Spanish interpreter read the instructions in Spanish.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos a la reunión de febrero de la tarde comunitaria. Se proporcionará interpretación simultánea al español y estaremos dando la información para que usted pueda acceder al canal, ya sea en inglés o en español. Es importante que todos elijan un lenguaje. Si es bilingüe, por favor, elija uno de los lenguajes y comparta en el lenguaje que haya elegido. Para utilizar la función de interpretación, puede ir a la parte inferior de su pantalla si usa el computador y busque el globo terráqueo o donde están los tres puntos donde dice More o más. Apriete ahí y encontrará el acceso al lenguaje que usted desea escuchar. Si usted nos está acompañando a través de un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, puede buscar esta información en los tres puntos también. Tiene que desglosar hacia abajo, elegir español y en esta parte tiene que apretar Done o finalizado para poder acceder a la acción. Si desea solo escuchar la voz del intérprete en el canal de español, usted puede silenciar el audio original para solamente escuchar una voz. También se proporcionará servicio de lenguaje a señas del inglés y también subtítulos al inglés. Usted puede seleccionarlo en la parte inferior de su pantalla donde dice CC. Gracias. Thank you.
Next page, please. My name is Jessica Monterosa, and I will be facilitating the evening community meeting tonight. I am an air pollution specialist, and my work is focused in heavy-duty off-road incentive programs. I also coordinate equity and community engagement efforts with the Mobile Source Control Division Equity Work Group. I will be facilitating the evening community meeting tonight along with many other staff here today in an effort to help with the coordination of the Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan, also known just as the funding plan, to share program updates and coordinate presentations on topics of public interest. I would like to take a minute to acknowledge the team of folks that help with the facilitation of these monthly meetings. Thank you all to the staff that helps coordinate this effort. Before we continue, there are a few housekeeping items we need to address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on our meetings and workshops webpage in about 2 weeks. This upload will be in the low carbon incentives webpage and will include the agenda, slides, and attendee list. Staff will drop a link in the chat where this information can be found. Next slide, please. These meetings are about community and sharing information. Our meeting agreements are here to alleviate challenges and are as follows. Please be respectful. Let's be kind and create a comfortable space for everyone to share their thoughts and experiences. Please take space and/or make space. If you have a lot to say, great. We encourage you to ask questions. But please be mindful and leave room for others to participate as well. Listen to understand. Please listen without judgment or jumping to conclusions. Finally, consider equity. We all aim to develop solutions with fairness and equality in mind. People from all over California are here to work together on the clean transportation incentives. These diverse perspectives can help us overcome barriers. So please strive to follow an equitable approach when helping to strategize solutions for our clean transportation incentive programs. Equity recognizes that advantages and barriers exist and that as a result, we do not all start from the same place. With these agreements in mind, let us continue. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose of an evening community meeting? Our annual funding plan development process involves daytime public workshops and work group meetings on various incentive projects. However, we understand that community members face unique challenges attending these meetings compared to representatives from industry, government, and non-government organizations. So CARB continues to host monthly evening community meetings to make it easier for community members and people not associated with an organization or company to engage with us. Our community meetings goals include holding a platform for community voices and their priorities, brainstorming solutions for clean transportation needs, highlight key funding information, including the most important information for communities, and foster ongoing communication between staff and the community. This continuous two-way communication between staff and communities is important to us. If you represent an organization or company that can attend daytime meetings, we'll welcome you to listen to evening community meetings to hear individual and community concerns. However, we ask you to please save your comments and questions and share them at a daytime meeting so that evening community meetings can be a space for individuals and community members. Next slide, please. For tonight's presentation, we have two items in the agenda. First up, for today's agenda, we have Michael Sidhu with an update on the Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators. They will provide an overview of the 2024 work plan and objectives. They will also hold a discussion about 2025 priorities and strategies. That will wrap up around 5:30, and we will then have a presentation from Stephanie Parent to review the survey results from last month's evening community meeting. This will be followed by a tutorial on how to navigate CARB's Clean Transportation Incentives webpage based on the feedback we received from January's evening community meeting. We will have a question and answer session after each subtopic. I will now hand it over to my colleague Leilana to address any questions or comments you may have on the items provided so far. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. We'll now open the floor for questions and comments regarding the introduction. Please hold any other program-specific questions until the appropriate agenda item or the open Q&A session at the end of this meeting. To ask a question or make a comment using Zoom desktop, click the Raise Hand button under the Participants tab. If you're using Zoom Mobile, tap the Raise Hand in the More tab. And if you're on phone, press *2 to raise your hand. You may also email questions to cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. This email address will also be posted in the chat in English and Spanish. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question, and note that our email monitor will notify us of your question in real time. Not seeing any questions. Maybe we can give it a second. I think we're good to move on.
Thank you. We will now start with the first part of our presentation to cover the 2024 Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinate Update. I will now hand things over to my colleague, Michael.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Sidhu, and I am a part of the Mobile Source Control Division, and I'll be going over the Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators. Next slide, please. We will be giving an overview of the Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators, otherwise known as CT ROCs, and providing an update on our outreach and engagement efforts in 2024, as well as future efforts. We will also talk about continuous engagement for zero-emission heavy-duty vehicle technologies, and we'll be soliciting your input on effective outreach and emission reduction strategies that can be undertaken within your communities. We will also be giving a recap of the 2024 CT Rocks implementation and go over some key lessons learned. Lastly, we will go over next steps and plans for the 2025 CT Rocks work plan. Next slide, please. So going over the purpose of the plan, the purpose of the 2024 work plan was to provide guidance to the 6 CT Rocks staff that are responsible for advancing CARB's clean transportation regulations. The work plan supports access to clean transportation regulations, incentives, programs, access, and assistance. Also, the work plan will help with conducting outreach and engagement. To go over our objectives, the work plan includes the following objectives: the designation of state regions and defining ROC roles and responsibilities, initiating community engagement with local community-based organizations, ethnic chamber of commerces, and other local entities. We will also be collecting data for ROC outreach. CT Rocks used the Cal Enviro Screen 4.0 tool in order to focus on overall scores that were greater than the 90th percentile, which was then followed by scores that were in between the 75th and 90th percentiles. So some of the metrics, linguistically isolated, metric being greater than, we looked at linguistic isolation, metric being greater than 50%, housing burden metric that was greater than 50%, and we also reviewed and looked at all tribal lands and regions across the state. Next slide, please. In terms of results or impacts, shown on the screen are from the first year of the CT Rocks program. A minimum of 4 event engagements per ROC per year was established for an estimated minimum benchmark of 168 engagements. In terms of specific outreach, 57 of our total events attended were in person. 38 of our total events attended were virtual. And to note, virtual includes anything attended via webinars or any presentations that were given at workshops via online or Zoom as this meeting, or any sort of online email communication. In regards to outreach numbers by region, they include Northern California having about 33 events, Central California having around 11 events, and Southern California with 46 events. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we use the CES 4.0 tool to help collect data on communities. We also used other CES 4.0 factors in order to reach all communities. So a few of them, for example, we also looked into the unemployment and education metrics to identify regions that could use workforce development within their communities. We tried to prioritize engaging with those regions that had a score higher than 50 to ensure we are serving the most underserved communities. We also looked at exposure metrics such as ozone and particulate matter 2.5 to identify regions that are inundated with higher pollution rates and that could use help with programs and incentives that can help those communities achieve reduction in GHG emissions. Now, going over the CES info, the estimated average number of participants at events. So the highest estimated average amount of participants was in Central California with around 319 average participants in attendance, and the lowest being in Southern California, coming in at 66 participants. The average CES score was the highest within Southern California, coming in with 79. The lowest score was in Northern California, with it being 56. As for the average linguistic isolation, the highest isolation was in Southern California with a score of 79, while the lowest score being 39 in Northern California. As for average housing burden, Northern California had the highest housing burden with a score of 60, and Central California having the lowest score of 41. Next slide, please. And now I want to pivot to demographics, specifically racial demographics by percentage for each of the three rock regions, which was Northern California, Central California, and Southern California. So Southern California had the highest Hispanic Latino population with 70% of our participants in that region. The lowest amount was in Northern California, coming in at 28%. As for the Asian American population, it was the highest in Northern California, coming in at 11%. It was the lowest in Central California, with 6% of the population being Asian American. Black and African American population was the highest in Northern California, with 8%. It was relatively the same in both Central and Southern California, with roughly 7%. The white population was the highest in Northern California, coming in at 47%, and was the lowest in Southern California at 12%. Next slide, please. I will now share some key lessons learned from our first CT Rocks year in 2024. First off, communities want to learn more about CARB and would like to communicate their clean transportation issues within community terms that occur within their region and their neighborhoods. Secondly, Rocks provided flexibility for community needs and leverage outreach opportunities such as the funding plan. Third, internal coordination across CARB programs ensured consistent messaging, provided accurate information, and helped enhance outreach. Lastly, conducting debriefs after every engagement event that captures feedback from the communities and lessons learned from staff that were in attendance has proven to be very helpful and will help us moving forward for our 2025 strategies. Next slide, please. So we will now shift gears a bit and go from speaking on our CT Rocks efforts towards zero emission heavy duty fleet outreach and emission reduction strategies. CARB wants to continue to promote zero emission heavy duty transportation technologies and getting more emission reductions through this sector. Some examples of current engagement efforts include the following: zero-emission heavy-duty truck events. CARB supports the communities by attending and hosting a variety of events that are aimed at clean heavy-duty trucks. CARB and its community and industry partners provide information that facilitates zero-emission fleets. Community engagements can range from community meetings to ride and drive events for large heavy-duty trucks. Next, we have the one-stop truck events. CARB hosted these one-stop truck events in different regions across California, including hosting in disadvantaged and underserved communities. Information such as fact sheets and presentations on our zero-emission heavy-duty compliance and incentive programs were provided at these events. There is also an opportunity for attendees to get one-on-one consultation if they have any sort of specific questions for the subject matter expert staff that are in attendance. Staff will be holding these events in 2025, but the dates are yet to be determined as we are in the process of identifying locations to host these in-person events. So stay tuned. Lastly, we have the ZEV Clean Fleet Tours events. This is where CARB partnered with several zero-emission organizations to provide program and incentive information across the state. So with that being said, tonight, staff is seeking your input with respect to continued community outreach and engagement, as well as emission reduction strategies on zero-emission heavy duty. Your perspective and expertise in meaningful engagement is very important to CARB and how we can also achieve the reductions in emissions from zero-emission heavy-duty adoption. Next slide, please. So we would like to begin a discussion with attendees tonight. I will facilitate and ask 4 questions as shown here for any comments, feedback, or suggestions that you may have. So I will go down this list and please make sure to raise your hand and your mic will be unmuted and you can go ahead and provide your feedback and your suggestions. So over here, we've listed 4 of the questions. I'll start off by going to number 1. What priorities and strategies should be considered? So we'll open it up to anyone that may have any suggestions or comments they'd like to provide our team. I'm going to give a few more moments just to see if anyone would like to share what priorities and strategies should be considered. Okay, if there are none, we'll go to number 2. What key metrics and impacts do you think we should that should be captured? Give a few moments to see if anyone has any sort of key metrics that we should look into, any sort of impacts that should be captured, for future outreach and engagement when we come out to the communities. We'll be coming out a lot in 2025, and this part of the CT Rocks, we've been engaging and talking to our local communities in our backyard and making sure that we can attend any events and any sort of programs where we can come out and provide more information regarding our programs and how we can help. So number 2, any key metrics and impacts that should be captured.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes,
you.
sorry. Yes, Mariam Moore here from the CCI, the Climate Course Initiative. I have a question. Maybe you addressed it previously. I'm so sorry I missed it. But how do you identify communities that are that need these services? For example, I'm from Sun Valley, and I would like to know how do you identify areas of concern to implement all these beautiful projects?
Yeah, so we look at a variety of metrics. We use the CES tool to look at all the, so we look at northern, southern, central California, and we identify locations that have, high particulate matter, anything, exposure to high particulate matter, as well as looking at, socioeconomic factors. So we also look into things such as education. Primarily, we look at the linguistic isolation where people may not have access to translation services or may have, hard access, have hard time accessing, any sort of like if they're having issues with any sort of like English translation and whatnot. We look at any sort of poverty levels as well as unemployment and housing burden. So this tool that we use, the CES 4.0 tool, is a great way to gives us a visual representation of which areas amongst the state, as well as specifically for cities, will put in their zip code to identify all these sorts of factors that are pulled up on this Enviro Screen tool.
I see. So Sun Valley basically qualifies for, or I mean, it falls into all of these categories that you just mentioned. And
Mhm.
I have tried previously to reach CARB because, for example, I'll give you just one small example. Even though there is a specific area in Sun Valley that's an environmental justice area, but aside from that, there is a construction and demolition debris crushing facility within 30 feet from a single family housing. And there is
Mhm.
lots of traffic of diesel trucks, diesel dumpster trucks with open loads. I mean, there's a lot of violations going on in this specific small pocket of Sun Valley. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand how can we have more outreach and bring CARB to address the issue of all these trucks. I personally have reached out to Department of Transportation and have them post signs that restrict the weight of certain trucks. Let's say trucks over 6,000 pounds cannot use this small residential street, but putting a sign is one thing and enforcing it
Mhm.
quite a different issue. So I'm trying to figure out how do I involve my community? How do I bring more attention to this issue that we're having with dumpster trucks and that haul waste back and forth literally within 3 to 5 minutes and every day 24/7. So when you say that you look at communities, then you define by larger regions, let's say South California. But how about those small communities? How do you address issues in micro communities such as Sun Valley, for example?
No, the whole goal is to definitely reach out, and I know it's a large population out in Southern California, so we make sure to reach out to community-based organizations, and to pretty much bridge that gap and have a conversation and see what sorts of things we can do or what programs we can help, identify that can be altered and tailored to your communities, because every community is unique and they have their own specific needs. So what I would advise is I will give my contact information after this. And if you don't mind me asking, what are you part of a community-based organization? Because if so, what we're looking for is we're looking for ways to come out in person. And if that's not possible, we are flexible to coming and having sort of these evening community events. If there are certain ones outside of this CARB one that we're holding, we would definitely love to, get into contact and be able to coordinate and collaborate in that manner. So we want to get on the ground, and we want to make sure that, if there's any sort of tours you would like for us to make, so that we can bring it back to CARB and address these issues, or see how we can at least tailor or find specific programs or incentives that would be tailored to your community. So is there a community-based organization that you are a part of that we can go speak offline, if that's okay, or are you a community member? Or
Yes, I'm the founder of the environmental nonprofit, the Climate Core Initiative. If you give me your contact information, I will reach out to you and definitely
yes,
start this conversation, how to help my community.
that'd be great. Actually, this is exactly what we're looking for. So we would love to engage with you and collaborate, and you know even travel down and further collaborate and see what we can do. Because we really want to hear everyone, and like you mentioned, it is a little tough with the state being so large. We're trying with this CT Rocks initiatives, we're really trying to get to the ground level, work with these smaller micro communities that may otherwise be overshadowed by like this the city of Los Angeles or San Francisco. We want to go into these more pocket areas and help identify and bridge that gap and see where we can help, or how we can alter and make sure that we can help you guys out best. So definitely we'll reach out, and I noted down your climate core initiative, and I'll have my contact at the end of this, and so we can connect. I'll have my email out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, hi, my name Lala Gamirov-Nost, and I have some question. When you writing here emissions, you mean only GHG emissions without pollutions?
Yes, we're referring to the greenhouse gas emissions. Yep.
Only, without any very toxic pollutants which coming from tires?
Usually most. Mhm.
So
Which
you're
part?
considering this pollutant as well, or only GHG emissions?
We
Because
look
it
at.
is different kind of and very toxic, and they
Mhm.
can be a lot under heavy pressure to the tires. So
Right.
if you're considering maybe we can contact with you and discuss it in more details.
Yeah, that would be great, because we really focus primarily on light duty and heavy duty on-road emissions coming
Yeah,
from vehicles. So
yeah.
any other sort of pollutants, I think if you could provide me with your contact information, we can definitely reach out to the appropriate CARB program and in division, and make sure we can get you both in touch, to see, because there's a variety of programs that CARB is, and that's part of our CT Rocks, as I mentioned. We want to be able to take all this information back that we get from our communities and our public, and we want to make sure that we can put you in contact, so that we can have fruitful collaboration and see where we can actually assist, and identify the issue that you may be facing. But yeah, for as in regard to your question, we are specifically focused on-road vehicle greenhouse gas emissions, and trying to reduce for this
Yeah,
division.
I'm sorry, I interrupt you. I am receiving almost every day emails from EPA and CARB, and they were actually interested not only in GHG emissions, which is of course great, and we have to do it, always continues that, but now under high pressure to tires, different manufacturing, and EPA has a few articles regarding different manufacturing of tire and how it is influenced to really toxic pollutants. So of course we have to start that, because EPA also interested in that, and CARB as well. If you have my email address, I really appreciate if you can contact me.
Definitely. And we can follow up offline.
Yeah,
I'll have my email up in the few slides we're about to wrap up.
yeah.
But yes, I'll definitely follow up with you.
Thank
Definitely
you very much.
appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate. Thank you.
Hmm. So I'm going to wrap up and see if anyone has any to see how CT Rocks can better serve communities. And if there's no questions regarding that, what outreach and emission reduction strategies do you feel we should be considered for clean heavy duty or zero emission heavy duty fleets? Give everyone a few moments. If not, all right. Looks like we don't have any feedback for these questions. And like I had mentioned, I'll give my contact information below so that we can get into contact and we can definitely direct you in to the right programs that are related to your questions and issues. Next slide, please. So this brings us to our next steps, which includes one, collecting responses to discussion questions that we received tonight. We aim to have continuous feedback from today's participants. So please feel free to email us or attend any of our future events to learn more about our programs. We'll have one-on-one meetings with community groups. So as I mentioned, CT Rocks will continue their efforts in reaching out and coordinating with community groups to identify meetings and events that CARB can attend in order to provide information as well as gather feedback from our local communities to learn about their pressing needs and issues. 3, we'll finalize our 2025 CT Rocks work plan. We're in the process, we've developed the 2025 CT Rocks work plan. This will build upon our 2024 CT Rocks work plan and will be the basis for future ones. And lastly, we request for CT Rocks at community meetings, events, and forums for clean transportation and zero emission heavy duty vehicles. So we will definitely be reaching out to all communities, micro communities, as mentioned by one of our attendees today. Our whole point is to make sure we reach the most underserved and communities that usually don't receive or are, kind of they don't receive the attention as they would as a larger city. So this is one of our major efforts for CT Rocks is to reach out to have it all in companies casting a wide net and making sure that we can reach out to as many communities as possible. So next slide, please. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for taking the time from their evenings to attend our meeting tonight. As mentioned before, I have provided my contact information in this slide. Please note it down, reach out to me so we can connect offline to the attendees that wanted to further explore how we can collaborate and I can put them in touch with the appropriate programs that may be in need that might meet their needs. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or would like to coordinate any sort of outreach and engagement within your region. If there's any events, please let us know. We would be more than happy to coordinate and come out. So next slide, we'll be going to see if anyone has any other questions or comments, and we really appreciate everyone. Thank you.
We'll now open the floor for questions and comments regarding the Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators updates. Please hold any other program-specific questions until the appropriate agenda item or the open Q&A session at the end of this meeting. To ask a question or make a comment using Zoom desktop, click the Raise Hand under the Participants tab. On Zoom mobile, tap Raise Hand in the More tab, and by phone, press #2 to raise your hand. You may also email questions to the Clean Transportation Incentives at arb.ca.gov inbox. This email address will also be posted in the chat in English and Spanish. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question, and note that our email monitor will notify us of your question in real time.
Okay, it seems like we have nothing in the email so far.
All right, and I'm not seeing any raised hands. Thinking we can go on to the next topic.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments and questions. And thank you, Michael, for that presentation. These ideas help improve the funding plan programs. For our next presentation, we have Stephanie Parent presenting on the funding plan reflection survey results from last month. Next slide.
Thanks, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Parent, and I'm the lead staff person for, our annual Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan, which we also call the Funding Plan. So today, I'm going to present some background information about the survey that we offered at last month's evening community meeting, go over some results of the survey, and talk about some key takeaways and next steps. Then we'll open it up to questions and discussion. Next slide, please. The goal of the survey was to gain feedback from community members and other evening community meeting attendees on what worked well and suggestions for how we can improve the funding plan development process. The survey objectives were to, 1, find out the types of groups of people who are attracted to evening community meetings, to see if we might need to advertise or conduct our outreach and engagement differently. 2, to understand some of the reasons people want to attend our meetings so we can make sure to address people's needs and interests, including if we should invite guest speakers. And 3, to gather ideas for how we might better advertise our meetings, make meetings more useful, improve collaboration, and if we might need to change the meeting format, such as to a hybrid format rather than online only. About 45 people attended the January evening community meeting. Excluding CARB staff who work on the funding plan or who were guest speakers at the meeting, about 33 attendees were public attendees. Next slide. The next 2 slides show the fill-in-the-blank question topics we asked about. And I'll talk about some of the results as well. Responses were unique, and the number of respondents was small, ranging from 5 to 11 people, depending on the question. Survey respondents shared that they attended the meeting to learn about various topics and to bring information about incentives and assistance back to their community. They attended to provide input, make requests, and to listen to community members. Some respondents said they found evening community meetings useful. One person shared, "I believe evening meetings are essential for people who have conflicts during typical core business hours." There were also suggestions to communicate topics and regulations via social media and that we post meeting agendas. Some suggestions to improve collaboration included that we conduct outreach to community groups and ensure that meetings are relevant to community by bringing in a coalition of community-based organizations and community. And that we distribute information and then hold open time for questions and discussion. Next slide. Suggestions for how we might better advertise evening community meetings included that we should identify who our audience is and meet them where they are. That we offer better meeting descriptions, objectives, and spell out what's in it for audience members. We offer materials and meetings in multiple languages, and that we advertise on radio, TV, social media, and/or e-billboards. The term meeting people where they are can mean to understand and accept someone's current situation, emotions, and opinions without judgment by listening and asking questions openly and honestly. If you have a different meaning for this term, please consider sharing it during the question and discussion session. Lastly, someone suggested that we send out summaries and resources after each meeting. Next slide. The next two slides show results from the two poll questions we asked. About 45% or 15 people responded to the request to share who they represent. Most respondents, 33% or 5 people, represented industry. This was followed by 27% or 4 people each for attendees who represented their community or themselves respectively. Lastly, 7% or 1 person each identified as either a program administrator or as other, respectively. We have added this question to future meeting registrations to get a better sense of who's attending the evening community meetings. We're also going to add another answer choice, which is for people who represent a non-governmental organization, also known as an NGO, or nonprofit. This is because we sometimes have attendees who don't identify as a community-based organization or a program administrator, but they're a nonprofit and they might work on topics such as air quality, health, climate change, and other topics as well. Next slide. About 27% of public attendees, or 12 people, responded to the question about how they prefer to attend meetings. Most of the respondents, 75% or 9 people, said they preferred to participate in evening community meetings online. 25% or 3 people said they preferred a hybrid meeting where people could choose to attend in person or online. And lastly, 0% of respondents said they would prefer in-person only meetings. Of course, I would say this result is biased because we asked the question to people who were already participating in an online meeting. We are looking into offering a community survey again this year, as we did in 2023 and 2024. If we do offer another community survey this year, we'll make sure to include this question in it. On the next slide, I'll talk about some takeaways and next steps. Next slide, please. As we move forward creating meeting agendas, notices, and other materials, we'll try to keep in mind our various audiences and try to improve upon our meeting descriptions, objectives, and provide the what's in it for me perspective. We'll explore if we can distribute presentations and reports or plans for review earlier than our goal of 10 days. Honestly, though, for evening community meetings, it's challenging because of the short turnaround time we have to develop materials and get them approved for these monthly meetings. Additionally, we'd like to see if we can also hold open time for questions and discussion when we do have reports or plans to share. In tonight's next agenda item, we'll provide a tutorial of our clean transportation incentives web pages to help people better understand and navigate them and more easily find the information they're looking for, such as agendas. Lastly, we're exploring whether we can advertise our meetings on social media. And actually, I should have updated that. We actually advertised for this meeting through various CARB social media channels. I believe Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and I saw one on Instagram today. So if you're on social media, you can look for CARB or maybe California Air Resources Board accounts and follow them if you're interested in doing that. So now I'll hand things over to my colleague Leilani to open things up for discussion. Next slide, please.
We'll now open the floor for questions and comments regarding the funding plan reflection survey results. Please hold any other program-specific questions until the appropriate agenda item or the open Q&A session at the end of this meeting. To ask a question or make a comment using Zoom desktop, click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you're using Zoom Mobile, tap Raise Hand in the More tab, and by phone, press #2 to raise your hand. You may also email questions to the Clean Transportation Incentives email inbox on the screen, and this email address will also be posted in the chat in English and Spanish. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question, and note that our email monitor will notify us of your question in real time. And I'll give it a few moments to see if we get any raised hands. All right, and it seems we had a question come in on the email inbox, so I'll read it out loud for us. The cost of hydrogen at the dispenser is a concern. In California, the higher the low carbon fuel standard credit price, generally the lower the price at the dispenser. Has CARB prepared an outlook as to when the low carbon fuel standard credit price could increase to $100 per megaton? And this is from Greg Kane at the California Hydrogen Car Owners Association. And we'll give it a moment to see if we have any staff on tonight that could help answer this question. And if not, we could follow up through email, Greg.
Like Lisa will respond to that.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, this is Lisa McCumber with CARB. So given that tonight is really focused on our incentives, I don't think we have anybody here from the LCFS program that can speak to this. So actually, Leilani said exactly what I was going to, which is that we'll have to follow up with you via email.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm not seeing any other raised hands. We do have one more open Q&A at the end as well if any other questions come up on this, but I think we can move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Leilani. Now we'll move on to Stephanie's second part of the presentation, which will actually, well, I'll let her present her topic. But thank you for your comments and questions on our reflection surveys results. And we'll continue on with your topic, Stephanie. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jessica. So on the next slide, we'll show a video of a walkthrough of some of our clean transportation incentives web pages. It's about 6.5 minutes. We got the idea for this because during the January evening community meeting, some survey respondents suggested that we post an agenda and related materials. We do post those on our website and we send them to people via our listserv. So we thought it might be helpful to walk through some of our web pages. Next slide, please. I'll show you around our Clean Transportation Incentives web pages. The main page covers things like our programs, projects, resources, and meetings. We'll focus on 3 areas: organizing and managing time and events, funding and incentives, and resources and support. Note that our website content may change as our programs evolve. Our first category is organizing and managing time and events. Scroll down and click the calendar icon for our meetings and workshops page. This shows both upcoming and past meetings. For upcoming meetings, you can register and view announcements, agendas, and presentations when they become available. We aim to post presentations at least 10 days ahead in English and a bit later in Spanish. For past meetings, scroll down to find recordings and materials, including American Sign Language interpretation and Spanish recordings when available. There's also an archive link at the bottom. Scroll up to the left menu and click Low Carbon Transportation to return to the previous page. Then scroll down to Announcements. Here, you'll find current updates about things like meetings and project updates. Older announcements are in the archive link below. For more CARB meetings, click Calendar at the top of our website. Now, we'll go over the funding and incentives category of our pages. On our main web page, you'll find information about our funding programs. Click More about this program for details. Below that, find our funding plans. Click View to access current and recent plans. Need older plans? Scroll down to the bottom of the page to Funding Plan Archives. This has records dating back to fiscal year 2016-17. Then return to the main page by scrolling up and clicking on Low Carbon Transportation. Now scroll down a bit and click the People icon to find our light-duty vehicles and clean mobility projects. Under Investment Programs, click Purchase Incentives. This gets you to programs like Clean Cars for All, Driving Clean Assistance Program, and e-bikes. You'll also find program insights and our eligible vehicles list. Use your browser's back button in the top left corner to return to the main light duty and clean mobility page. Now, click on Clean Mobility to find our sustainable community-based transportation equity incentive projects, also called mobility projects. These include Clean Mobility in Schools, Clean Mobility Options, Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, and Planning and Capacity Building. Back on the light duty and clean mobility page, we also have Access Clean California for information about our outreach efforts. Use the back button to return to the main page. Now, click the truck icon. This gets you to our medium and heavy duty on and off-road vehicles and equipment incentive projects. You'll find our long-term strategy and projects like innovative small e-fleets, clean off-road equipment, and the zero-emission truck loan pilot project, plus support such as CalFleet Advisor. Use the back button to return to the main page. Scroll down to Apply for Funding. Here, you can access various projects that are open and have available funding. Our last category is Resources and Support. The left menu has links to everything that we've covered so far, plus other useful resources. Scroll down the page and check out popular resources. Click More Resources to access all incentives resources. Now scroll down to check out related programs. To access all CARB programs, click All Programs. Now let's go back to the top of the page. At the bottom of the left menu, click Subscribe to join our email list. Enter your email address, enter the letters shown, which change each time to make sure you're not a robot, and click Submit. Then on the next page, you'll scroll down to Clean Transportation Incentives and either select specific topics or check the main box to receive updates on all topics. Since the list is long, you'll drag the scroll bar on the right down to the bottom of the screen and click the Submit button. You should now begin to receive emails about the topics you selected. We hope you've found this tutorial helpful. Please email us at cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov if you have any questions. You can also find this email on our main page below the left menu. Forgot to unmute myself. So I'll now hand it back to Leilani to facilitate our comments and questions, if there are any about the webpage or information related to that video.
Thanks, Stephanie. So we'll now open the floor for questions and comments regarding Stephanie's webpage tutorial. Please hold any other program-specific questions for the open Q&A session at the end of this meeting. And to ask a question or make a comment, click Raise Hand under the Participants tab on Zoom desktop. If you're using Zoom mobile, tap Raise Hand in the More tab, and by phone, press #2 to raise your hand. You may also email questions to the Clean Transportation Incentives inbox, and this email address will also be posted in the chat in English and in Spanish. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question. I'll give it a moment again to see if we get any raised hands.
Leilani, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking at the slides, and I think the future slides, we don't have like an open Q&A at later. So I guess this could be open to other questions as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Not seeing any raised hands for the open Q&A, and we haven't got anything in the email inbox either, so thinking we're okay to move.
Just make one comment. Was the thought about the video was that maybe we would maybe post it on our webpage so that people could access that in the future if they were having a hard time finding materials on the website or needed a little navigation tutorial.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that presentation, and well, good job on the video. I'm sure it'll be a helpful resource for our community members. With that, we can move on to the next slide. So thank you again for your questions, comments, and collaboration. We appreciate your time and your feedback, and of course, your ideas to keep improving our evening community meetings and to move forward in our funding plan. Next slide, please. Our evening community meetings are usually held every third Tuesday of the month, excluding the month of June due to the state budget being finalized and the month of November when the funding plan is presented to the board. We occasionally need to shift the evening community meeting day around by a day or two, but lately we've been trying our best to keep it consistent and keep it at the third Tuesday of every month. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 18th at 5 p.m. Staff will drop the link to learn more about our next meeting and to register. So we will have registration links for the future Zoom events, agenda, and presentation items posted over the next few days or weeks. And as usual, we are, if you're interested in suggesting a topic, we invite you to email us with your topic ideas or potential panelist ideas. Next slide, please. Thank you all for being here today and taking time out of your evening to join us. Please contact us with any questions of concerns. If something may or may not be working for you and your community regarding air quality or community transportation needs, we are here to listen and do our best to help. So please reach out to our team at Clean Transportation Incentives at arb.ca.gov. To keep your inboxes up to date on the funding plan, please subscribe to the listserv link that staff will also drop in the chat. That concludes our evening community meeting for today. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.